When Hank began the business, I'm sure that I didn't realize it would grow to what it is today.
You could tell him the sky is falling and he will find some way to interpret that as a good omen.
I want them to want me as much as I want to work for them.
He would muster these people and get them excited over the project. And that's what made it interesting. It was fun.
There are just many things that I think small businesses have to be flexible about if they want to survive.
Psychologists tell us that one of the common traits of an entrepreneur is the feeling of being an outsider, looking in on the culture. In that sense, everyone who starts a business feels like a minority. If you're like Hank Henderson, a black graduate engineer in 1950 who can't get a job in his field, you know you're a minority. This week's story is about one black man who wouldn't stay outside. Henderson Industries started in his basement in West Caldwell, New Jersey, making panels for commercial weighing equipment. The company then expanded into building custom control panels which regulate a wide variety of industrial machinery. Today, the company has systems around the world, including panels that direct the manufacturing of bicycle tires in China and the operation of metropolitan transit systems in the United States. In some ways, this is not a story about business, but about beliefs. What we believe often becomes reality, and in the case of Hank Henderson, he believed, without doubt, that he could succeed where older, whiter, more established companies could not.
A number of older men in my church and in the family suggested I shouldn't take a job working for a black man because they just didn't think it would work. Well, that had been an unwritten rule among black people for many years. You know, a lot of people don't understand that, but it was that way. Prior to Martin Luther King and so on and so forth. I think the main reason was that they didn't think the black business would make it, particularly this kind of business. Now, had it been a barber shop or a cleaning service or something like that, their attitude might have been different. But this was something different. They never heard of anything like this before.
I can recall way back in the early days when a client was going to pay us a visit, or his company a visit. Hank would call me and say, this would obviously be after hours or on a Saturday, and he would make the arrangements then because he was trying to juggle two businesses. And the client would come in and he would say to me, Ben, he said, look, when he comes in, you make believe you're the boss and I work for you. Those were the days where being a minority business was not necessarily an attribute, or it was a hindrance. Although people said that they weren't prejudiced, they were. And I felt uncomfortable. I said, but Hank, you're the boss. This is your company, it's not mine. He says, that's okay. Today, you're the boss.
I wanted to be an engineer. An engineer was never mentioned in my home, and I don't think in the black families that engineering was mentioned many times as a possible profession. And in graduating from the State University of New York at Alfred, as I recall, there were only two other graduates at that time in my program that were black. And I'm not sure what positions that they got. But I was disappointed time after time, and it was that we'll keep your application on file. It's the same story that's, let's say, that was used, that may be used today, or at least before affirmative action was involved.
When we got married, I had finished school. He had another year and a half to go. And I went up to be with him while he finished his year and a half. I went to school locally, so it was a little like being away at school, living in a trailer, and being very much part of the campus life, both of us. After a year and a half, he finished, and we came back to New Jersey. jobs were not that easy to get, and especially for young black people.
I took a position with Curtis Wright. The title was inside grinder, and what that meant was that I was grinding the inside of propeller blades. I was working nights, 4 to 12, but continually looking for an opportunity to use my training. And I continually pestered them until finally they said, guess what? Tomorrow morning you have a position in Carlstadt in our electronics department. And when I went there the next morning, the position evaporated. Said it was a mistake. And I decided, Curtis Wright, that was it for me.
There's a combination of two things that I think Hank exhibits that are supposed to be important success factors. He is very tenacious. He will not give up on an idea. And no matter what happens, he is always positive. You know, you could tell him the sky is falling and he will find some way to interpret that as a good omen. And the combination of those two mean that we don't dwell on setbacks or problems. We just look for the future and the successful outcome.
When I first started it, I didn't even think about making money. At least I don't think so, although, you know, money was great. I think it was more that I could achieve something and do something, and I could make that control panel. I mean, that's great satisfaction. And as we look back over the years, we have controls and instrumentation in the major companies in the United States, in the major tire companies. We have them in utilities, we have them in nuclear power plants, we have them on Alyeska pipeline. They're just all over.
We're in the business to solve problems. If a person has a problem, they come to us. If they can find a solution by going to a local hardware store, they would do that. But they come to us because they can't find that solution.
And we used a fluidizing material to get the material out of the bin.
Okay. The way we used to handle it is supply a separate scale for each material. But we can't do that. That's cost prohibitive. If you can't find a standard product, or if a standard product has to be modified, or if a standard product has to be integrated with a custom product, then people come to us.
People come to Henderson Industries because everybody else has said, well, we can't do that for you. And, you know, Henderson Industries is like the Mikey of the industry. It's like nobody else can do it. Go to Henderson Industries. They'll design a system for you.
We've shown the scales in blue.
If I'm told that we have to calibrate something plus or minus 10, I'll calibrate it right on the number. Never mind the plus or minus 10. Give it to them exact. Perfection is what's necessary. If we're going to do things and stay in business, we're going to have to do them right. We're going to have to do them better than the other guy. Even if we weren't a minority business, we still would try to do it better than the other guy. Often, I get into arguments with our engineers because I won't accept what they've done. If I don't accept it, it doesn't go out unless I'm overruled by Hank himself.
All through life, I felt that anything that Hank Henderson did, me personally, had to be better than anyone else, that anyone could do. I never said it's good enough if it could be done any better. And that's the way it is at Henderson here today. Every project has to be perfect. It has to be tested to make sure that when it gets in the field, that it works exactly the way it was supposed to. It becomes an institution within the organization that our product must be good and must stand up and someone can say, that's lasted a long time. Who made that? Henderson Industries? Good company.
Hank and I go back to 1950. Hank started as an engineer working in the R&D lab with the company called Richardson Scale Company. He decided that he wanted to do something more than that. He wanted to start his own business. So Hank, on a part-time basis, working after hours, nights, weekends, decided to go into electrical contracting. And I could recall going there on Saturday morning and helping him pull conduit right out of his dad's garage. And there was really a business that started in someone's garage.
When I first started it, I did not think of this is going into business. I guess it was another vent for some of my energy. In 1952, I built my own house. Every year I have to have something to do. And the opportunity that I saw at Richardson was, one, they were behind on deliveries. They had to find subcontractors. And I went to management and convinced them that on a particular job in which they were very, very far behind on delivery, that I could do that for them in my basement and make them look good with their customer. And that was the start. We got another job, and before you know it, we had more work in that garage and basement than the community could handle, because we were not in a commercial zone, and I had to move that business from a residential area to a commercial area. There were just too many trucks pulling into the driveway.
I think Hank's success and so forth is not necessarily that he's that highly technical. What he's able to do is he's able to put problems aside. In other words, he knows why you can't do something. He said, let's talk about how we can do it.
He really believes that we can do it. Sometimes we don't believe we can do it, but he has that confidence, and so we go ahead and it works out.
The children and I, to this day, we still chuckle that whatever occasion occurs that may seem a problem to us, his standard answer is, don't worry, it will work out.
Shortly after I started working for Hank, he asked me to go down to Baton Rouge because they had a problem. Well, I didn't know whether or not I should go down there, because the last time I was in the southern part of this country was in 1945, 46, in the military. And, you know, the services were segregated, the railroads and everything. And I got down to the airport in New Orleans. My bags didn't get there. This is my first trip, you know, service trip. I didn't get any bags. I couldn't get a rent-a-car, and I didn't know what to do. There I was down south, all by myself. So I called, and Hank reassured me everything was going to be all right, and so on and so forth. So he just told me to go ahead and get on the bus over to, I forget what motel it was, well, one of the Sheraton or something. And I was afraid to do it, but he said, go on, go ahead. So I did. When I walked in, I walked up to the counter, and this elderly white lady said, yes, sir, what can I do for you? I almost fell. It was a new experience for me.